Okay, now that we have seen how this application worked, where we were able to store names in a list, there are some limitations to an application of this nature. Let's run it again, just so I can show you. Even though it works, all the mechanisms are there, but as a practical application, it lacks a lot of other features. For example, this only stores names. What if you wanted to store name and, let's say, the weight of an athlete plus their age? Okay, so that combination of these three elements represent that particular athlete. In this case here, we're just stuck with names. So if I add a name, right? So if I choose one, Joe, right? And if I print all names, then this is all the feature that I get, just printing names and so on. So could I have added features to add age and weight to that particular person? And how do I synchronize that to that particular person, considering that I might have several names? So this could be very, very challenging. This is why it is a good idea to go into another concept. So far we've seen what we call single-dimensional lists. And it's similar to the concept of single-dimensional arrays in other languages. We have arrays in Python, but that's a different topic. However, what if we had multi-dimensional lists? In other words, can we have a list within a list? So that means, let me go ahead and clean up this code here and show you visually what I mean, so we can get rid of all of this. All right, so what I want may be something like this: record equals, and then I'll have a main list, and then within it I will have an actual list that represents a record within it. So let me put S here, so this is records, right? And then inside of it, I'm going to do another list, right? And I'm going to put a name Joe, comma, I'll put the age 20, and I'll put the weight of 165.1. So we know that's the order of the record. So can we have another record, which is another list within that list? And the answer is yes. You just put a comma here. Now you could write next to it. So this would be Jane and comma. So we're going to follow the same pattern. If you're going to create a database, you want the tuples within your record to follow the same pattern, so it's easy to query or find what you need to do. And there you have it. Okay, so now this is what we call a two-dimensional, so I can add more records. And this basically is a two-dimensional list, or what we call a list within or lists within a list. And I could have Bob and comma 21 and weighs 150.4. Okay, so let's put this 1.0 just to make sure that we understand that. So there you have it. So that means I have records of these athletes, right, with their particular name, their particular age, and their particular weight. And I have 3 records. So how do I step through this using a for loop? Well, it really is that easy. So for, let's say record, you want a record in records, right? So print record. Okay, let's see what this will do. This will simply print the whole list within that one. So make sure that's records. So what do we want? We want a record within records. So we create a variable called record, and we basically are saying within records, I want record to be here first, and then here, and then here. Let's see what happens when you run this. And there you have it. So you get your records like this. Now, if you want in particular to pull any of them in a specific way, in terms of name, age, and so on, you could do something really fun here and say name, and this would be record 0, right? So if I wanted just names, we know that for each one of these, the index 0 is for the name. So let's see if we pull out all the names. And sure enough, Joe, Jane, and Bob for names. Okay, can we print next to it age equals? This is a lot of fun. So you can actually, and this will be record, and guess where age is? Index 1. Fantastic. So, and then print, and then we'll, oops, it's a function, okay, and weight, and equals, and then we'll put a comma here, and that would be record, guess what? 0, 1, 2. So that would be 2. All right. And you know what? We're going to put print so we can separate each record with something like this. So we know there will be lines between the records. So let's go ahead and run this thing for a second. And there you have it. So you can see here, name Joe, age 20, weight 165. Jane, age 20, weight 120. Name Bob. So much more flexible than a single dimensional a list. Single dimensional lists, don't get me wrong, have its place. But this one, if you want to keep heterogeneous records of this nature, this is perfect. So you could do it like this, or you could simply print the full record. Or in our case, and most of the time, we're going to be focusing on the actual particular element within that record. And then this for loop here allows me to step through the whole thing. Okay. Could I have done a loop within a loop to print each item? Absolutely. So we could have done it also differently. So let me just go ahead and comment this out to show you that I could have stepped through each element by creating what we call a nested for loop. So let's go ahead and create the main loop first, just like we did here. So for record in records, and then we're going to create an inner loop for, now we know we're within that, item in record, and then you can print that. And print item, okay, and once we're done, notice what I'm going to do the print for the line right here, print. Notice what I tabbed it. That means this print here, and let me put that as part of a string. There you go. Right? And let's just remove that. There you go. So what does it do? Well, it's this here, the outer loop, will allow me to step from one record to the other. But while I'm in there, okay, I'm going to create an item that goes one at a time within each record. So in record. And we're going to print it. When we're done, we're going to print a line. Notice this print statement, right, is lined up right here, which means it's part of the outer loop. So what we call this outer loop, and this one we call the inner loop. Let's see how this behaves. And there you have it, Bob 21, 150. All right, little less more details than what we've done before, but you have these different techniques for accessing what we call a two-dimensional list. So I will see you later on with a more practical example on how to use a two-dimensional list.